Unless it's the 2010 car, these guys are the tryhards you'll actually want to look out for. Fast, consistently front-running, and a scary amount of consistency. It's also worth mentioning that these guys have a weird tendency to appear out of absolutely fucking nowhere. You think you're alone and safe, and BAM! Ferrari in this game is a strange case where the drivers found in the game are polar opposites of what the team is like in real life, as Ferraris tend to be the most consistent of any drivers. Skill-wise, they aren't quite as good as the Red Bulls, but they're on their doorstep while also making less overall mistakes. And the crazy part is that the car's age plays no part in how well they can control the car. Yes, not even 2003. For the longest time, the McLarens had the same stereotype as the Alpines do now, that being that the car was really, really cheap, and so a lot of new players would gravitate towards it. But now that the 2024 cars gave the McLaren a much-needed price increase, now it's starting to be used by more experienced players. Whether they're really good or really bad compared to the other high-tier players, we'll see. This is a pretty similar case to the Alfa Romeo of last year. You like the livery, and it's cheap. That's kind of it. Though what's interesting about stake users in particular is that they're actually pretty good at the game despite using a pretty cheap car. So the stereotype of a new player who only goes for the cheap shit doesn't apply here. Because that belongs to... What happened here? Genuinely what happened here? The Alpines used to pretty much be an extinct species because of how little of them existed, and now they're only back in full swing because of how cheap it is. And the really funny thing, right, is that the Williams is in the midfield now, somehow. So when new players get this, they are literally paying to shoot themselves. It's funny. It really is. These guys just started playing the game. They don't have a sense of control, they consistently hit track limits or break their car, and they probably don't even know how to switch. However, every now and then, these guys can be played by someone who's pretending to be a new player just to throw everyone off when he wins, so watch out for that. You'd think that considering how fast the Merc is, that these guys would be the toughest tryhards out of anyone. Well, as I've discovered, no. It's like, they know how to drive properly, but they're never really aware of how fast they're going, which leads to a lot of unnecessary crashes. Granted, there are some Mercedes drivers that are quite frankly ridiculous, but it's more so a coin flip on whether you get one that's a really good driver, and whether you get one that doesn't know how fast he's going. These guys will never use the 2024 car, mainly because of how much it absolutely butchered the Aston Martin. They are going to keep on hold of their 2023 until the day that they die. Both of these cars now have the same stereotype, but to different degrees. The moment the 2024 car went on sale, the people who own these cars were keeping on taunting and flexing on servers that they got it before it disappeared. However, the main difference is the severity of it, because if it's on an Alfa Romeo, then they're usually quite chill about it because they still like the way the stake looks. But if it's an AlphaTauri, they don't shut up about it. If someone uses a Haas, their only goal is to have someone look at them driving on the track, and then have that same person go, "What the fuck?"
Ricciardo
These guys have a lot of history behind them, because for the longest time, no Toro Rosso was in the game, despite there already being AlphaTauri. But then, once the Miami update came out, a Toro Rosso was added for both 2007 and 2016. And the community's reaction? Well, that's neat. Life is astonishing. Regardless, these are the guys that really, really wanted them to be added. And because of how long it took the team to add them, they will almost never use any teams. Like, I have never seen more team loyal people than Toro Rosso players. Like, Jesus! The stereotype for the Santon entirely depends on what year the car is. If it's the 2022 car, then these guys are fossils who've been playing ever since the game begun, and because of how the Santon didn't appear on the 2023 car, they kind of feel obligated to use the 2022 car, despite it being a lot worse than the future annual cars because of the Santon. Now, if it's the 2024 car, then it's the exact same stereotype as the Williams. Which is ironically the exact opposite side of the pendulum. People who just started and can't wait to switch to a faster car. This guy could be anyone. No, seriously, I mean that. There are so many people who use the 2024 car, which is fair, considering it's the main car that's advertised, but like, my fucking god! This is an interesting case because both of the cars I've listed here are impossible to get nowadays. And as a result, these two cars have a whopping 4 stereotypes to them. Firstly, for the people who only use the 2023 car whenever it's a wet race, because for some reason the 2023 car is surprisingly good in the wet. Secondly, for the people who just want a bit of a nostalgia trip, which is fair enough. Thirdly, and this is for the 2022 car, people who want to flex and say, hey, I was there! I was there! And the final category are for people who want to use teams that have left the sport. Say, the 2023 Alfa Romeo or the 2023 AlphaTauri. And eventually, in the near future, the 2024 and the 2025 Sauber. Oh wow, it's these guys. I love these guys! This is the most hated car in the game. And it's for a good reason. It is so disgustingly overpowered that it's not even funny. And thus, there are only 2 kinds of people who will use it. The first kind of people are actually kind of respectable. They only do it if someone else is using an overpowered car, like the 2021 car, or if everyone else votes for something they don't want out of spite. Which, I can kind of respect that. But the second kind are the people that default it on every single goddamn race just to make sure that not a single other person has a chance of winning. And, like, I get it. It's the best car in the game. It's the meta car. But, like, come on, you can ease off of it at least once, you know? These drivers are rare, mainly because the 2016 car isn't really very good, but these guys are absolute kings of making the most of its upsides, those being ridiculous grip and crazy top speed. You'll quite often see these guys casually taking lines that a lot of other drivers will just scoff at. And also, they get really pissy when someone says that they're pay to win, because the car's not even that good.
Fuck you! I hope your whole family has a nice Christmas!
I just don't fucking get it! Do you hear that? That's the sound of someone who bought the 2010 car based on its stats. Because if you look here, the stats suggest it being pretty quick. But in reality, it's about as fast as the 1992 car, despite having a lot of grip. Either that, or whoever drives this really likes the Braun GP car. And, to be fair, that I can respect them for. after the rework, there are only two kinds of 2010 users. The first half are for people who just regularly use the vehicle. They mainly just use it because they like the handling, and because it lets them put up a fight against the 2021 cars. The second kind are the people that normally use off-meta cars, but the second they see someone using something OP, you son of a bitch. I know I've already talked about the stereotype for the 2007 car, but there's been a bit of a change. You see, for the longest time, this was just the stereotype of the 2003 car, just a little bit more competitive. Mainly because the 2003 car was just about being flashy and shit, while the 2007 car was more of an all-rounder. But then it got buffed in Content Update 10, and now... well, I think you should see for yourself.
When heavens divide, I will see the choices within my hands. How can we ever protect and fight with our tiny souls? Let me shine like the sun through the doubts.
Technically, this car is meta and can keep up with 2021. But you have to be the most batshit insane human being on planet Earth to make use out of it. And even then, you're still slightly slower than the Red Bulls. So why does a subsection of people use it? Well... The 2003 car is the flashiest car, so it's often played by the same people who play Captain Falcon in Smash Bros. Winning with them is just a small thing. All they want to do is look as stylish as possible while still gaining places. And to their credit, sometimes it does actually work, but most of the time this ends up happening. There's also been another shift with the stereotypes after Content Update 11, because when the Rain update dropped, for some reason that nobody can even explain, the 2003 car is the best car in the wet. No, I'm not trying to pull your leg, and I'm not trying to give you a little bit of a haha funny joke like Nicholas Latifi being the GOAT. No, the 2003 car is legitimately the best car in the wet because its tires no longer wear, it's still really fast, and it just doesn't spin. So every time there's a wet race, there's a very good chance that you'll see a 2003 car. And if you do, run. What the f- Okay, I'd have a guess that about 90% of people watching this video have never actually seen anyone using this car. And there's a very good reason for that. It's awful! It's only really that good when you're going in a straight line, and it can't even do that as good as the 03 car. Regardless, these players, while being extremely rare, do exist. You'll often see them on the time trial mode, seeing how close they can get to the times of the meta cars. And they have a scary amount of control of the car. Like, it might just be witchcraft for all I know. Oh, and one more thing is that they always use the Honda livery. Always! You don't main this car, and if you do, you're lying to yourself for the sake of getting attention in the comment section, you dolt. What really happened was you got curious when this came out and bought it expecting to use it for ages. But you didn't understand how the car drove and then immediately abandoned it. Am I right, or am I right?
Chandler. Cum laude.